I've been asked to say a few words about some of the items we found on the site. It's not exactly an antiques roadshow. Nothing that we've found has any monetary value. Even the things we brought in to show you what some of our finds would have looked like originally have only been worth a few pounds. But what's fascinating, what I found fascinating, and I hope you will too, is that the things we found cover 400 years of the use of this site, starting with the 17th century and going right up to coins which were probably lost at the last summer fair. The first things that came out of the site was a number of pieces of clay pipes that might have been smoked by workmen, by labourers on the estate, or by the people who did the railway. And the archaeologist in charge of the dig told us that this particular piece of clay pipe, with a very small bowl, is probably 17th century. It's, I think, it's the oldest thing we've been able to identify. And as you can see, it's absolutely tiny. Just to show you what the clay pipes would have originally looked like, I bought some complete ones, and here are some complete clay pipes of various ages. The oldest one's this one, with a rather unusual curved shape, and the most modern one's this one, which just looks like a briar pipe. And that might have been made in the 1920s, and that in the 1840s or 50s. You get all sorts of things on old clay pipes. I'll put those down there, the bits that we found actually on the site, and just talk about two of them. This one is the rather ornamental bowl of a pipe, and it says Home Rule, and Home Rule was Home Rule for the Irish. And this pipe too, another later one, probably from earlier in the last century, the 20th century, it's got a harp and shamrocks, and would have been smoked by one of the people who came over, the economic migrants who came over from Ireland to build first of all the canals, and then the railways, and more recently the motorways. And today it's work which might have been done by Poles or Romanians. In the 19th and 20th centuries it was done by Irish people coming over. So those are quite interesting things for people to look out for. What else did we find? Things of all different ages. We found a great many coins on the site that have obviously fallen out of people's pockets, and they were from, most of them from either Queen Victoria or right the way through King Edward VII, King George V, King George VI, and until the modern ones. We have found 2p's and 10p's and things like that. One of the oldest ones we found was this 1806 halfpenny, and I'll put that down there and we can look at that later, an 1806 halfpenny. And we also found one of the, a token, an Anglesey token, which is from 1797. Now the Anglesey tokens were made, are the most common of the tokens. Lots and lots of firms made tokens, but the Anglesey copperworks, which you can still see on the road to Amloch, on the left-hand side going towards Amloch, you will spot the copperworks which made this. They actually made 50 tons of these, 50 tons of pennies. And the reason they made them was because the government didn't produce any copper coins, any halfpennies or pennies, for a number of years at the end of the 18th century. The story I heard was that they didn't want to use the copper just to make coins because they were using it to sheath the bottom of Nelson's warships and, and merchant ships as well, to stop the worms getting at the timber. But I don't think that's true. I think what's really true is the government of the day was made up of very rich people, and they dealt in things like golden sovereigns and silver crowns. They weren't bothered about the halfpennies and pennies which ordinary people needed, and there just wasn't any small change. So although the fact that the Anglesey token was illegal, it was illegal to mint your own money, it was commonly used by everybody as small change because there wasn't anything else to use, and a blind eye was turned to it. And that's a really interesting find, I think. We found all sorts of other coins as well. We got some nice silver threepenny pieces which grandparents or older people will remember were called joeys. These are Victorian ones. We found some sixpences, which were called tanners and things like that. Right up until the very present day. We found some quite high denomination coins. We found some half crowns. Half a crown was worth having, even 50 years ago. I can remember when I joined the Navy, going for a night out on half a crown, taking the bus from the naval camp, going into the local town, buying some chips and a loaf of bread, and then going to the cinema and eating them and getting the bus back again and still having change left over. And I mean, that is not really very long ago, and half a crown was 12.5p. We